time is 7:31. I call got some reverb going on. April 2nd meeting of Yardley Borough Council to order. I will not be able to handle that.
Is that the monitor?
It sounds like it's back there.
Back by you.
Sounds like it's you.
Testing, testing. Oh, that wasn't me. Perfect. Please stand for the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Roll call, please. Manager Johnson.
Mr. Applebaum,
Present.
Ms. Scherer,
Present.
Ms. Siegel-Morris,
Present.
Ms. Thompson, Mr. Finer,
Present.
Mr. Carlson,
Present.
and Mr. Stump.
With 6 members, 1 electronically, 7 total present, we have a quorum. We will now move on to community announcements. I would first like to start the community announcements by moving an item up on our agenda from discussion items, North Main Street vacant lot discussion, and invite Tim Rutterow forward to chat with council about the lot on North Main. Yes, please. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us why you're here this evening?
Good evening, my name's Tim Rutterow. I'm not a resident of the borough, but I own a lot in the borough, 62 North Main, which is the empty lot just beyond the big yellow house. Although 45 years ago, my wife and I moved into Belmondo in Delaware the day we were married and slept on air mattresses because we didn't have any furniture. We were among the first people to live in those apartments. So Yardley's always had a special place. I live in the township now. I have a proposition for you. I'd like to donate the lot to the town, free and clear.
Wow.
For putting a park there. I realize that's something of an unusual proposal, so I'll give you a little bit of background. We bought, my wife Judy and I bought the property in around March of 2022 with the intention of building a house there. We had lived for 30 years in an old farm outside of New Hope. We had downsized to the waterworks. We had overdone the downsize and had decided to build a house back in Yardley. We saw that lot. We saw it's the ideal place. We're going to put up a beautiful Greek revival house. I spent about $50,000 having plans drawn up. We were getting ready to go. You may or may not know that the sewer authority wants to put a line down the middle of the lot, so there's a little bit of consternation about that, which I won't get into in any particular detail. But it was a risk to buy the house. We knew it was a little bit problematic and controversial, but we figured it was worth the risk. It was a great spot. Life intervened. In June of 2022, Judy was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she died in September of last year. After she was diagnosed, our plans got sidetracked. We needed another different place to live, so I bought the house in the township on Mayfield Road, near Edgewood Road, and she died there. I really haven't done anything with the lot other than keep it clean, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I cleaned out all the stumps that were there and maintained the property as best, we maintain the property on a regular basis, have the grass cut, it looks nice. I was thinking about putting a spec house up there or a hot dog stand, no, just kidding. But it dawned on me that the ideal use for that property would be a park, if you want to do it, because it is sort of in the entrance to Yardley as you drive into town. And I was kind of persuaded by the fact I spoke to one of the neighbors, a young woman who lives next door, and she was pretty concerned about us building a house there and what it would do to flood issues and things like that. So, and I'm getting a little too old to fight with the Sewer Authority, so I thought that the best use for the property would be a park. I would like to donate it to the town. Obviously, I would get a tax deduction, but other than that, I wouldn't have any, I wouldn't require any additional costs. The Sewer Authority is paying me something for the easements. I am fighting with them about how much it is. They did a valuation on the easements that did not include any properties in Yardley for some strange, bizarre reason. And so I'm working through that with my attorney. But, you know, we won't let that hold anything up. My vision for it is a simple park where people, you put a beautiful sidewalk out that side of town, a simple park that would allow people to rest, meditate, think, pray, and maybe enjoy some flowers. I would also say that I'm certain Judy was a special person. Her funeral at St. John's in Lambertville had about 400 people at it, most of whom she has helped in one way or another. She was beauty, grace, and faith right to the end, and I think it would be pretty simple for me to get a minimum of 50 people once a year to beautify the park if necessary, and however you want to proceed with that, we'd be open to it. I also have a local architect who would help in any landscape design or additional help. So I'm willing to participate, but I'm not going to put a lot of restrictions around how it's used, other than the fact that it would be used as a park. That's my story. You can decide whether or not it's a hot dog stand or a park, and I'm open to any questions that you might have of me.
I just want to say a few, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm sorry for the reason that you are sitting at this table, but what a beautiful way to remember Judy. Thank you for sharing a little bit about her. Thank you for this offer. It is completely unexpected and wonderful. And I will turn it over to Mr. Feiner. I know you two have been talking a little bit. Mr. Feiner,
Yeah,
any
sure.
words?
Well, first, I mean, I'm honored to have you come here to our borough and to want to do this in the name of yourself and your late wife. Just for the purposes for council, we've been speaking since the fall, to the extent where, somebody could easily say, let me just sell this for its value, and it's significant. And for you to be wanting to do this to the extent that you thought through how to take care of it, not just, here you go, here's a piece of land, let me take the stumps out, and let me organize people, to maintain it as a beautiful place. It's moving, it's touching, I'm grateful for you doing that. And I also want to say, we know how small Yardley Borough is, especially this property is right next to the yellow house, one of the original Yardley houses, right? So to have a piece of property there for people to sit in and to just enjoy the beautiful atmosphere that we live in is something that will stay with this borough for, hundreds of years. So this is a, once in a lifetime opportunity. So I just want to thank you.
You're welcome.
I would concur with Mr. Feiner. I just wanted to thank you. We've been working together on public works, and it's opportunities like this that give me pause and reason to continue being on council because of the generosity of, I know you don't live directly in the neighborhood, but close enough. And as Mr. Feiner said, there's limited amount of property available for this kind of project, and can't say enough, and thanks for us to have this opportunity. I like your personality and your sense of humor, so I think a hot dog stand might be something we consider, right? But I'm glad you're laughing. But seriously, one other comment I'll make as the chair of the Economic Development Committee, we have been working along with Jared on community outreach and Mr. Feiner of Public Works, is to create a destination town and reasons for people to visit. And in Judy's memory and honor, I think that nothing better could represent that, and something that I can talk to people about. And thank you.
It's kind of ideal too, because of its physical location, it's right in the middle of town. I mean, it's right there. So it's walking distance from the Continental, the most important thing, right? So it's, yes.
Yes.
Well, I imagine next steps would be,
My people talk to your people?
My people will talk to your people. Do you,
Yeah, right here. What do you
Oh, no,
mean?
it's the lawyer.
before you leave this evening, please stop off, no.
My lawyer's Bill Scott at some long name in Newtown.
Our lawyer is Andrew.
Yeah. And if he can reach out to you, we can make this happen. Sure. I'm ready to go. So, I probably have to get an appraisal, quickly get an appraisal to, for tax valuation purposes. But other than that, the lot's free and clear, so we can do this quickly if you decide you want to do it.
And do you wish for it to be dedicated as a memorial park?
It would be nice. I would like that. Judy was a very quiet person, so small, discreet would be good. So I think that would be lovely. And she would hate me talking about her like this. So, but I think that she had a way of making lemonade out of lemons, and I think this would be carry on that tradition, perhaps.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin, do you have a question? You look like you were leaning forward.
No, I don't. I do know the law firm that you've retained pretty
Yeah.
well. I know a couple of the attorneys there. I'll give you a copy of my card and we'll
Okay.
reach out to them and start moving forward with what needs to be done.
Great. Good.
Beautiful. Thank you
Done.
so much.
All right.
I would just like us to,
Yes. Clap.
this
Please.
doesn't happen very often, so please.
Some good news.
Nice to meet you.
Nice man. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. With that tough act to follow, does anyone have any other community announcements this evening, starting first up from council and the mayor? Any community announcements from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. This is the portion of the meeting where members of the public can address council on items not on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address, and keep your remarks to 3 minutes per topic. Any public comment this evening? We'll now consider the consent agenda dated April 2nd, 2024. It includes approval of the minutes dated March 19th, 2024, certificate of appropriateness 24-0331 West Afton Avenue siding and decking, certificate of appropriateness 24-0431 North Main Street handrail, certificate of appropriateness 24-05 43 South Main Street sign, Lennar-Yardley Walk Financial Security Release Number 1, Lennar-Yardley Walk Financial Security Release Number 2 final. Would any members of council wish to remove an item from the consent?
Madam President, just going to defer to Harv for a second. I had planned to ask for B and C to be removed. Is that okay? So B and C we'd like to have removed, please.
Would any members of council like to remove any other items from the consent agenda?
Yes, I would. Please remove E and F.
What's that leave?
Anyone for A and B?
The consent agenda is beautiful when it works, and sometimes it doesn't work. So I will entertain a motion, if there are no other requests, to approve the consent agenda with just items A and D.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilperson Finer, seconded by Councilperson Scherer. Discussion from council? Discussion from the public? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We will take them in order, starting with item B, Certificate of Appropriateness 24-0331, West Afton Ave siding and decking. Do I hear a motion to uphold the decision of HARB as submitted, which was, I believe, a rejection of
I'd
this?
like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilperson Applebaum, seconded by Councilperson Finer. I'll open discussion from council first.
Thank you, Madam President. I have had the opportunity to discuss this in detail, and the point I will make before I hand it over to, if you still want to speak, hand it over to Mr. Taylor, who is the chairperson of HARB, that we as laymen have nominated and appointed these people who are on HARB because of their professional experience as well as their knowledge. And in my opinion, based on the discussion of why they chose to decline the certificate, certificate of appropriateness was legitimate based on their, how they determine these outcomes, and I was fully convinced and have no reason to doubt that this is the best decision for the community. I'd like Mr. Taylor to come up and speak about the process, if you'd like to.
Let's discuss on council first. If you have questions for HARB or for the applicant, we'll handle those next. Does anyone have any comments on just the application that's submitted, not questions? Yes, Councilperson Scherer.
I remember looking through it, and what they're asking was for hardy plank in the front of the house, and it's on all the three other sides. So I first thought about, historically what would be required, but then I don't know how, but I was thinking, I recall hearing that hardy plank was approved for Yardley Jewelers in the past. So I was trying to figure out why we would let one but not another use something that's very durable and probably easier to maintain rather than use something that is historically accurate, but maybe you can't see the difference when you look at it.
Thank you.
And the other thing was I wanted to, I saw the deck or the porch. I think they wanted something like, I forget the name, Trexor or something, something like the artificial woods that are very durable. Once again, they look like real wood. They don't fade like they used to. And I understand wanting to have it historically correct, but it was my impression, and I'm just questioning, that it mostly pertains, or I thought it only pertained if you could actually visualize it from the street, which you really can't see what somebody's porch is made out of when you're driving down the road.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the table first?
I would like to share that having been all over the country, I've been to pretty much almost every state in the union. There are very few historic districts, and years ago I had somebody, I was looking to bring a business into Yardley, and I had a business owner who was very successful in other towns in Pennsylvania come here, who was originally from New England, and he was shocked by the beauty around Lake Afton and the architecture, and he said it reminded him of small towns that he had lived in Maine. And so I say this because the historic district is a gem. We're very fortunate to have it. We're fortunate to have a board of professionals to help us maintain it. People who buy into that district are making an agreement to maintain their houses to the standards set for that district, and they're benefiting from other people also doing that. Altogether, it raises or at least maintains the integrity of the district. I've been on council on and off for about 10 years. I think I've seen one override of HARB, and it was for something inconsequential, not visible, and could have gone either way. I think we have a board of professionals for a reason. We are not people to, unless we have personal expertise, to go into the weeds on this. And by the argument of, well, it looks like it, but it isn't. Well, that's America. America is full of plastic. If you look at a house and it has 3 plastic shutters and 1 original shutter, do you say, well, the other 3 are plastic, it looks like it from a distance? Or the siding is aluminum, but it looks close enough. I'm not knocking that, but in a historical district, you need to have standards to maintain the integrity of a district, and it's the job of our board to do so, and they've done so. So I don't think it's a good road to go down and to start overriding decisions because we think it should be different. And if decisions weren't the way we wanted them in the past, I think we can look at that. But we need to move forward in upholding what our board says. Thank you.
I agree with you. I just feel like regarding Hardy Plank, that ship seems to have sailed when it's already been allowed in some circumstances. Why penalize a home or a structure that has it on 3 sides already?
Because many houses have those kinds of things that have happened, over since the 80s and different times when it was less watched over. But I don't think that because of a mistake being made in the past, we should continue the mistake.
And then,
That's just my opinion.
my other concern is that where is this written down somewhere where if I'm the person and I don't know, owning that building, do I know that Hardy Plank isn't allowed? Because it's been allowed in the past, so it's not allowed now. So I think that maybe moving forward, so that we avoid questions like this, that this should be stipulated, so there's a document to refer to if one does not exist. I looked in the ordinances, I didn't see anything, I couldn't find anything specifying materials, but I did find that a survey is supposed to be conducted of all the exteriors in the historic district and monuments and things like that, and it's supposed to be revised every so often. So I'm just wondering if that stipulates what materials are supposed to be used. And that also, regarding your past and present decisions of HARB, that if these things were stipulated in writing, that means in the future, if there was a less strict board of HARB members, that would prevent somebody saying, oh, well, you can put whatever you want on your house, right? So I feel like that this needs to be written down so that there's a consistency from year to year or decade to decade on HARB regulations. And then we do maintain the historic district and the historic value of the borough.
Is it documented somewhere that the previous one was a mistake?
Is it documented somewhere that the previous one was a mistake? I'm not going to go into that right now. We will get there maybe. Mayor Harding, any further comments on this before?
I was going to kind of go there, so.
Yep.
So, okay, no?
Well, I was going to invite first Mr. Taylor and then the applicant forward, and I was going to ask Mr. Taylor just specifically in his summary of the application and HARB's decision, speak to what happens in these situations where certain materials have been approved or maybe not approved, but they're in the borough on other historic properties, and on a new application, they're not being approved. How does HARB recommend we balance that? And if you have any thoughts, so please come forward and if you will. I know that's a big question. And then also you can speak to the guidelines question.
Yeah, thank you. It's very hard addressing your question, and each house is different. That's why we can't have set standards, hardy plank yes, hardy plank no, and things like that, because every house is different. Our rule regulations are guided by the U.S. Secretary of Interior Standards for Historic Preservation. national, all around the country. Okay. And the first thing they tell us is to maintain. So property owners should maintain their homes. It's everywhere, not even in the historic district. Maintain your home. Clean your gutters. So many porches are ruined because people don't clean their gutters, and the roof leaks and all the woodwork in the porch deteriorates. We have that happens a lot here. The second thing is to repair. If you have one siding that's bad, one board, it's a lot cheaper to repair that than to rip off the entire building. So the second guideline in which we review is repair. And then if you can't repair it because there's so much damage, then you replace. You're supposed to replace in kind. Sometimes the situation is such that it's impractical to replace in kind, and then you might go to hardy plank. But the preference is to replace with wood siding. And a lot of it has to do with how much has to be replaced. So for this specific application, they did have approval to put hardy plank on the rear and the sides. The reason I believe, and it's been a few years, but, so the applicant knew about HARB. There's no question about that because they had already gotten HARB approval. But they were doing major work to clean up the sides, and there was a lot of additions and crazy roof lines and all that in the sides and the back. And they cleaned them up, had HARB review it. We looked at the window locations and things like that. And we said, because you're doing so much of that stuff, it's okay to use hardy plank on the rear and the side. The front is the part that everybody sees the most, and the Twining House is probably the most historic, significant, one of the most historic, significant buildings other than Lakeside, which you were talking about, the neighbor and all that. Because the Twining family was a well-known member of the community. And so two things historic is, one is who lived there, like the Yardley House, Cadwalder's, things like that. And the other thing is the historic significance. In this case, the Twining House, along with the two, I forget what the builder's name is, the Episcopal Church has, those three houses in there, plus the one that Tim fixed up, those houses along there are very pristine and well done, and maintained. And so this is a very historic, significant building. If there was a house on South Canal Street, which has a lot of infill, that's way down where the church is, that Shirley's doing. There's things that happen down there, but there's been a lot of changes and infill and all that stuff. So you treat those houses different than what you do as your main architectural significant places. Okay, so that sort of differentiates and why we can't really just say, hey, hardy plank is approved anywhere or not. The other thing is maintain, repair, and then replace. So in this case, the front of the Twining House is in very good condition. It's got wooden siding on it, and it's in very good condition. They've maintained it beautifully. There's no peeling paint or anything. It's in good shape. The same thing, I believe, was true for the porch. But what happened is that the contractor came in without a permit, without HARB approval, and ripped up the porch and tore it off. And it was observed at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then when I came back from a hike, I went and visited the site before they had put the plank on and said, you need HARB approval, you need a building permit. And the person there called his boss. He said, I will go over to Borough Hall and do the paperwork right away. So before they had put the deck down, they were notified. And the borough was notified at 10 o'clock in the morning, but they were notified as soon as I got there, and I can attest to I did that. And so they took it upon themselves to complete the work anyway. The other thing that they did was, on the side porches, they didn't lay the plank the same way that the porches were laid before. Before, the planks went perpendicular to the building out, and they took this little side, they're just little things like that. They ran the boards lengthwise. So it's a totally different pattern. It's not historic. And so just for that alone, they should be ripping that up and bringing it back. Forget the substitution of material. They should be bringing back to the pattern that was original historic porch. But wood is a very durable material that lasts for hundreds of years, if maintained. You have to know to treat wood. You have to paint all the sides of wood. You can't just paint the top and let the bottom raw, because it'll rot. But, and you have to allow porches to breathe. You have to let the water be able to pass through. You can't block it. So, well-maintaining maintenance was the first thing you have to do. And if a porch is well-maintained, and I believe that porch was well-maintained, it was in good shape and it could have kept on going with just simple maintenance. So that's part of the reason why this was denied. One, they had a building permit before for hardy plank for all but 3 sides, but not the front. So they were aware that the front was special. And so Harbor was respecting their past decision. And the other thing is that they're using a substitute material where they could have used wood to repair what was damaged. So that's the reasons for denying the application. Also, the material, just, you can't tell from the outside, but the material that they use is basically sawdust with an emulsifier, urethane emulsifier that holds the sawdust together, and then there's like a vinyl coating or something like that on the outside. And it's probably, maybe the applicant can tell me how long that's been around, but wood's been around for hundreds of years when maintained, and these new products have probably been around for 10, 15 years. Hardy plank is an older product. I think someone said it's been around 30 years. But people have had problems with hardy plank now. And before that, we had aluminum siding. And we know how vinyl siding is buckled. It looks nice when they put it on. It's buckled over time. Aluminum siding sounds great. You still have to paint it after 20 years because it fades and gets chalky and everything else. So there's a reason why you stick with wood, and that's how the Secretary standards go by. Is that good? Can I answer questions?
I think you responded to the guiding document you used, Harb's process with respect to the front versus the sides, and this property versus properties on other streets. Are there other questions?
Actually, I just have a question. So granted all that, and that removing that deck and replacing it with a wood deck would be a significant cost, then I also see that Harb can advise owners of historic buildings, maintenance methods, technologies, adaptive use, and grant opportunities and other historic preservation strategies. So is there any monies federally for people, like, since that's such a historic house, to maintain the historic nature? There's no grants?
I think you might be able to get tax write-off for certain buildings, but that's about it. Federal government sounds nice, but, they don't give you any money. So we'd love to, because there's a lot of, Borough Hall, we'd love to be able to get money for Borough Hall, so.
Wouldn't we? Yes.
And then what are the standards for unreasonable economic hardship?
I don't think there was economic hardship.
Well, they could have kept the existing porch without doing anything, so that was, but there's an instance. We used to ask for a slate line roof shingle because most of Borough was all slate roofs. And we asked for slate line by John Mansfield. And an applicant came in and gave us a price quote for shake, I forget what's the name of the stuff we always approve? Either shake like. Anyway, there's another one that, Timberline, yeah. Timberline shakes. And they're like a quarter of the price of slate line. It's the same weight, everything else, but somehow John Mansfield just mass produces the slate line. And so there's a big economic difference. And so we'll ask for slate colored timberline, but we won't ask for slate line, which is closer. And there's also rubber ones, like they did on the church on South Canal Street. Shirley put on rubberized slates that look very real. So that's your economic thing, We are very cognizant of it.
Thank you for speaking to that. Mayor Harding.
Jerry, I just had a general question about the standards you mentioned, and you may not know. The architectural standards that you guys follow, have they, or do they ever evolve with time and technology, update the standards? As you said, hardy plank's been around now for 30 years. Is there ever any evolution of those standards where they say, okay, we understand now hardy plank is a more, acceptable product and we update the standards. Does that ever happen from what you see?
Remember, the standards are maintained.
Yeah?
Second is repair. So if we're talking about wood, maintain your wood, keep it painted. Number two, repair it. Now, Dr. Wilson is hand scraping that.
I see them every.
Fantastic job. We put it in the newsletter, congratulating him because he's going through that effort to replace the bad boards, which he has done, and, he's trying to repaint it so he's meeting those standards. That's how the historic guidelines go. So if you have brick, we don't say, hey, you got to put in wood because wood's better now, or hardy plank. If it's brick, you maintain brick. If there's a newer building, and there are newer buildings in the borough who have hardy plank, we would never turn around and say, hey, you can't have hardy plank on here, you have to put wood back. So you're maintaining what's the existing, historically existing.
Thank you.
So, so new products, the object is to maintain.
Mr. Taylor, two questions. One, you said, if I recall, that they continued with the work after you asked them to cease and desist. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a penalty for that, Ms. Johnson?
The contractor came right in, filled out the applications. If we had to go after them and be persistent, then we would double their permit fees.
I see.
But this contractor and homeowner came right in, took care of they started the process immediately.
But they ignored the, Mr. Taylor's, I don't know what we would call that.
On their behalf, they had the deck up right at the front door. They could have put down plywood so the people could get in and out. It's a fire exit. So you have to maintain that fire exit. So on their behalf, they really had to do something at that point. But the minimum amount, it's like if your roof blows off, you put tarp on the roof, you don't have to replace the entire roof.
But bottom line, you were ignored. My second, I'm sorry,
Taking Mr. Taylor out of it, does HARB have cease and desist
No.
powers?
No.
and I don't know, that's why I'm
Okay,
asking.
so that's what
No,
I'm asking.
and I think, Mr. Taylor, you recognize that it was an informal request that you made to them to.
Yeah, I
that it needed to
have
go
no authority other than the historic building inspector maybe has a little latitude on going to people's property and talking to them. I mean, otherwise, as a council member, you can't really go up and go on someone's property and say, hey, you do this, this, or this. I can't.
I agree, but it still was ignored. My second question has to do with historical properties. At what point, after you begin to replace various accoutrements of the building, does it not become an historic building any longer? In other words, if we keep making exceptions and precedents, when does that building, and I know you can't answer this, but I don't think, but maybe you could address why, I know why this is so important and why we need to try as hard as possible to maintain the historical integrity of these buildings before they are not historical any longer.
So that has to do with the historic district and the survey that, was mentioned. There has to be a certain quantity. Most of the buildings in the historic district have to be historical. Wawa, when the survey was done, Wawa was here. I don't think they count that as historical. So it's a certain percentage that makes up the district. So if a house is in the district, it's reviewed under the historic guidelines. If it's modern, glass walls and all that stuff when it was built, then, that's sort of the guidelines you go by. The, behind the Fulbert building, people don't know what that is, but unless you've been around for a long time. The stone building down there, they put an addition in the back, okay? That wasn't a historic addition. It was, it's got a hardy plank, things like that on it. When you build additions, you're allowed to, you should not make it look like the existing building, historic building. You're supposed to make it look like it was an addition. So that you do differentiate between additions, new buildings, and old buildings. So they even differentiate on that. So, and that's why we let it go away with what it was, because it was not historic.
I just have a question, not really to do with this, but so when you buy an historic house in the borough, is there a record of the original or the, keep it the same, like, maintaining it as to the original materials? Like, and not really having to do with this, but as, like, just wondering, like, is there a record of what materials, then how?
You mentioned that survey and said what it was, but the survey might say wood siding, but it doesn't say it's a 6-inch lap or an 8-inch lap.
Then how does Harb know when I come and?
We have to go and look what's there now. And you can basically tell what's historic and what's not. But sometimes we can't. And if we can't, someone mentioned a porch. A porch was ripped off like, 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We don't have any photo documentation of it. We can't go back and say, we think this porch should look like this because we think that's what it was historically. We don't know. So, there's more latitude on what can happen with that porch, just because we don't have a historic record. But we have a lot of photographs of the downtown. Sometimes we use those, if we can come back. And just on the side, everybody knows my wife.
No.
She's, she's doing a lot of surveying and digging up photos and going through all the old files. And they're pulling out some fantastic articles about businesses and some old buildings that were here. It's like the Italian place. There used to be a huge cupola or a tower on top of that. They knocked down about 10 foot of it. And you look at that old photograph, and it was gorgeous. The doctor's office next door, there was a beautiful, like, outreach, projection out on the side of that. And so we have some historic documentation. So if we get something like that, we'll go to the owner if they want to do major renovations and say, hey, this is what was here before. Do you think you might be able to do something like that? So.
Two questions for you. One is, maybe you could explain it better. I'm just thinking about, like, I saw pictures up close. I mean, that's a beautiful house. But I saw pictures up close of the hardy plank versus the wood. And on the hardy plank, you see this kind of like pattern, but it's like a printed computer pattern as opposed to the pattern of wood. And I'm thinking about, like, what would happen if in the Afton library, someone replaced the floor inside with vinyl plank flooring, which is maybe a great material for certain conditions. But, what would happen to the space? But I don't have the language to explain
Probably
it.
blood all over the place if someone proposed that. But other than that,
The things that look like things, but aren't those things.
well,
Similarly.
actually, hardy plank has a rough side, a wood grain side, and the smooth side. When we do get into that, we say smooth side out, not the rough grain, because old houses did not have rough grain signage. People used to do all these carved wood signs, with a real rough texture and all that stuff. That never happened historically. If you had siding, it was smooth. No one wanted a rough. So, that happens sometimes. People put and in fact, Cam did it down there in Cat Wilder's office. They did a little renovations on the side there, and they put the rough side out. Now, is it so noticeable that, you say, hey, rip it out and flip it over? But that's an instance where, you have to be very mindful. And Harb does do that. We'll tell them,
My second question is this a case of just hearing that I know informally spoke to the people doing the work, and then they applied after they finished the work? Is this a case of do it now and ask for forgiveness later? And if so, what's your threshold for when they would be double billed, just so we're clear on what the standard is? Because that to me seems like the case where you would do that, or is it because although they completed the work, they came so quickly on the same day? Like, what's...
Started the process right away. They started that dialogue. They didn't ignore us. I know Jerry thinks that he was ignored, but the contractor came
oh,
right
no,
in.
he told me he was going to go right over, and I
Right,
didn't doubt that at all.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry?
Oh, I didn't doubt that they
Right.
ignored it at all.
Right, so
no.
they didn't ignore it. I understand your frustration that this was done ahead of time, but saying that the contractor ignored and just went ahead and did it, I don't think that's fair to them.
I-
But if we had to pursue them, then absolutely, they would get the double permit fees.
To understand the timeline, the work was completed before the permits were issued.
Well, yes.
Well, the permit
they-
hasn't been issued
The
yet.
permit has not been issued yet because they
What's
haven't
being
gotten
reviewed
any of their
tonight, yeah.
approvals from Harb.
I've been getting
Yeah,
confused.
there's a
Okay,
lot
that's what
going
I thought.
on.
Yeah, I'm not, there's no accusations. I just want to understand what the,
All right,
what the
As far
threshold
as
is.
fines go and all that stuff, I think if it's denied and the contractor has to put back the wood plank the way it was originally, I think that's a fine enough as is.
Yeah.
I couldn't see any other penalty.
Nobody
Why-
wants-
I mean, that's, and, I think they wanted to get the porch done just to close it and all that
Sure.
stuff. So, I think if they just replace that, I think that's plenty.
Thank you. In the interest of time, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other members of HARB have any burning things they'd like to add? Otherwise, we'll move on to the applicant. Thank you. The applicant.
I was a little long, but I think it was good to help council get a better idea of how Harb works and everything else.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for all the work you all do.
Good evening, guys.
Evening.
I am the contractor who, installed the deck, and we were,
Name, please?
installing the deck when he walked up and we ran and got applied for permits. I just wanted to be known that we are in no way trying to devalue the historical district whatsoever by putting updated products on this building. We're simply just trying to refurbish this building while still keeping it looking historic. That's literally all we're doing. Reason why we didn't get a permit in the beginning is because Mrs. Allen thought, well, her husband originally did the permits, I guess, for the rest of the house that was done in Hardy. So we were basically like, okay, well, in our minds, we're just resurfacing this deck. It's not a huge thing, and we're gonna use updated products because her main thing was it wanted to be maintenance-free. So going by that, we just started resurfacing the deck with composite materials. And that's when Harb walked up and we were like, nope, we have no problem getting a second set of eyes on whatever we do. We don't, that's totally fine. So that's why we went right to the borough to get permits, because if we need permits, obviously you got to get them right away. So in doing that, finding out that for whatever reason, we couldn't put updated materials on the facade of this building, even though there are multiple buildings with the same materials on them, which was kind of confusing. So we're just kind of stuck in a 2-month back and forth, and we're just trying to make it right. It's really what we're doing. And I don't understand why her building would be any different from some of the buildings on this very street that have these same products on it.
Right.
Is really the confusing part. We're just trying to basically finish her job.
Like, in the meantime, when we were getting the house completed.
Can you just pull the
Oh, I'm sorry.
microphone to yourself?
I don't even know
so-
if it's on.
It is on.
It
It's
is
on.
on?
It goes
Okay.
to the live stream. and on.
Sorry,
A
there
little
you
bit.
go.
Thank you.
You're kind of a soft talker.
Okay, thank you. As they were ripping some of the pieces out, it was so rotted. You couldn't put anything back on that. You had to rebuild it from the ground up. The wood was rotted, it was falling apart, it was black, you couldn't put a nail into it. So, actually, it was my son-in-law and his group that helped do this building too. And he has a great reputation. And he doesn't do anything slipshod at all and will never do anything slipshod. He does A1 work all the time. and people just rave about him and bring him back for other jobs. I mean, he does amazing work. And he has a brother that works with him.
And going back to the deck resurface, we didn't finish that deck to, go against whatever anyone was saying, or, cease and desist or anything like that. We were just so far ahead that we didn't want to leave it open for someone to walk out and into an open frame, is basically what it is.
Yeah, and then for animals to get in there
Right.
underneath
Yeah.
and build nests. We had that problem too,
Yeah.
because the wood was so deteriorated that they made nesting after the
I mean,
thing.
there were certain areas underneath of that wood deck that needed to be repaired, which we did repair before we resurfaced it, but other than that.
Yeah.
So your point about, the point that was made about the cost-effective solution being leaving what was there, you're saying was not an option because you could not walk on
No,
it,
you'd
it
have
was
to be
rotting.
blind, and even then you could,
I have photos of what we found once we pulled.
yeah.
So I'm trying to understand the, so Harp says they want wood siding on the front to patch, replace with wood as opposed to hardy
We
plank,
didn't
right?
know that.
Right, but I mean, I'm talking about the siding now, right?
Yeah, sure.
And you're saying you want maintenance free. I think the house is for sale, right?
Yes.
So it's maintenance free for the next owner?
Right.
But people buying in a historic district know they're buying a historic house that's not going to be maintenance free. Although I understand that that could be a considered. Is there some reason that you're outside of, I mean, is that a problem to put wood siding to replace, to repair/replace the wood that's there?
Of ripping that up and replacing it with the
He's talking
wood.
about
But like
Of the siding?
hardy plank versus wood,
Oh,
I'm trying to get a sense from you, does it really make a difference to you in the sense that, you can repair or replace parts of it and wind up with wood versus the hardy plank option, which Harb is saying is not appropriate for it, but would that impact you in any way to replace it with wood?
well, we don't want it rotting out again.
Yeah, it's,
But you're
I
going to
think you're
sell the
talking about the
house.
siding though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what, I'm talking about the siding.
yeah, no, the siding's not rotting.
The front of the house, or-
Yeah, it just needs some,
No, it's not rotting.
Okay.
No, definitely not.
because the application is about putting hardy plank
I just-
Hardy plank on the face of the.
on the face.
One
Yes,
person
correct.
at a time.
To match, I'm
Or,
sorry.
yeah,
So I'm just saying, is it a problem for you to go with Harb's recommendation of using wood instead?
Now it is.
No,
No.
The job's done.
yeah, no, he means the siding.
Oh,
Yeah, he means the siding.
Yeah, I was just talking about the siding.
Yeah, no, is it a problem? No, we could scrape and paint it, but it's not gonna match the rest of the building.
and the paint will peel.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
be a
just have,
maintenance issue.
I just want to, you might appreciate this, maybe not. Well, I was curious about the hardy plank, and I looked up hardy plank in historic districts, and what I did find was that there are more and more towns across the United States that are allowing hardy plank in historic districts, which I think is, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
May I? Thank you. So a couple things. Number one, if I understand Harb's process, then replacing the deteriorating wood with wood is not a problem because that's one of the next steps. Is that correct, Mr. Taylor? Okay. In kind, thank you. Secondly, I was just curious about this term, maintenance-free. What does maintenance-free mean? Because I can't imagine it's maintenance-free. What does that mean?
Maintenance-free, meaning it doesn't have to be painted, it doesn't rot,
Bugs can't eat at it.
bugs, no termites, nothing. Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, that's interesting, but it still doesn't really fit within the parameters that Harb feels is the best, steps to take. I don't see this as personally, I don't see this as a what's the word I'm looking for? the cost of it. You live where the building's in a historic area. You probably should have known or gone to HARB. I don't know the history. We don't need to go into that now, but you should have probably checked on it. How many historic buildings have you, do you think that you've done work on prior? And what was your experience, I suppose, would be a good...
I've been doing this for 30 years.
No, I said how many historic buildings with the similar kinds of restrictions, if you want to call it that.
With those type of restrictions, not many at all.
Do you normally check with the boroughs or municipalities? And so when you did, they didn't tell you that it was in a historic district?
I didn't check with the HARB on this one.
No, that borough, at Borough Hall.
Oh, no, so I did, all right, so when I applied for the permits for Borough Hall, I was already under the assumption that the Hardy was already approved for the front of the building. So being that 3 sides of the building were already done, she had spoke that she had gotten permits before and whatever the case may be. So I didn't even think, to say, is this okay that we're doing this? I just did the applications, and here we are.
What about the decking? Is that the same? Because there wasn't decking previously. That was the geo. What do you call it? What's it called? Geo. What's that stuff called? The synthetic decking that you used.
That is called fiber-on decking.
Fiber-on. So.
It's a recycled composite decking.
Okay, so I have seen that certainly in use, but not on that structure. So what was it that led you to believe that you could use that without going through?
They told us that we couldn't.
So
Because nobody told you you couldn't,
I thought
or
that
some-
I could use it simply because it was just a deck resurfacing.
I see. So you didn't know
I
what
wasn't
the.
totally rebuilding this deck, I was just resurfacing it. And being that a couple buildings already in the town, in the borough already had this type of decking.
Okay.
I think you're making a good case for why we have HARB,
Yeah.
because it can get confusing.
Mayor Harding and then Mr. Taylor.
Just 2 quick questions. Sherry, do you know what the material is of the deck at the vault? It's artificial? Okay. And what would be the cost to tear up the deck now and replace it with mahogany is what was there?
You could do pine.
Or pine? What kind of cost would you be looking at to do that?
Probably around, probably in the $20,000 range, I would say at least.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I can be sympathetic with their concern if the deck was rotted. Regretfully, they never came to us and never offered photos or anything else, so we can verify with their claim. If their claim was true and it was totally rotten and all that stuff and couldn't be repaired individual boards or something like that, we might have been, we would at least look at, maybe other materials or options. But in this case, it was just done. And so, when I looked at the dumpster, the boards that I saw looked pretty good. I didn't see any real rotted ones, they were nice boards sticking out, all that stuff. So, if they had gone for the hard permit right away, we could have come out, they could have given their case that it was rotting, and come to us and said, hey, this is totally shot, and we have to do something else. But that didn't happen. So that's the case for, make sure you go to HARB, get our feedback, ask us our opinion, let us look at it, and then, we could look at it again. But in this case, we didn't know until after the fact. And when I got there, all the deck was gone, and they were doing some additional wood blocking.
Thank you. So I think we can all, it sounds like we're going to split on this, but I think we can all agree that, we would absolutely rip our hair out if we did work on our house and we had to redo it. We're not unsympathetic to that. I think the issue here is we have a board of professionals who are tasked with making decisions in our historic district. That is not expertise that these 7 people have at all. And so we are reliant on the certificate of appropriateness process to kind of give us more expertise so that we can vote in good conscience on what they're recommending in our historic district. With that being said, it sounds like there's maybe some differing opinions between the decking, which isn't as visible, and the siding, which hasn't been done yet, and there's some warmth to do, just scraping and painting the siding. So I don't know if there could be a route forward if we divided these two things and started over, but before us tonight is a joint application for the siding and the decking, which was denied by HARB. We have a vote on the table. The motion is to uphold the decision of HARB. So if you're voting affirmative to the vote, that means you are agreeing that it should be denied. If you vote nay, that means you disagree and you thought it should be approved. Are there any final comments before I call the question?
I have a final comment.
Yes.
Can they go back? Let's say it's upheld. They can go back and work this out with HARB as much as they want to, correct? In other words, nothing stops you from going back, and maybe there are details here that we didn't get to that HARB could get to. Okay? Is that-
From my understanding this evening, it sounds like the siding is more important and more visible than the decking. I could be totally off base there, and I'm not making any promises there, but that's kind of what it sounded like to me. So yes, you can go back and have more conversations with HARB. Yes, Mr. Foster.
I just want to make the comment about the block, which is West Afton Avenue. And I also want to make a comment that this goes a little bit down a very dangerous precedent. So let's start with 31 West Afton, and I'll just let you know I know this block very well. Next to 31 West Afton, which is the building we're talking about, is 23 West Afton, fully restored with a mahogany porch, according to HARB standards. All new wood put on front of the house because the wood's beyond repair. No hardy plank on this building. Next building, 19 West, restored, original decking, original siding. Next building, 15 West, original siding, original decking. Next building, 11 West, original siding, original decking. Next building, 7 West, original siding, mahogany, brand new porch. The precedent here, sitting on HARB, is once we make an exception for this kind of decking, how about another person on West Afton coming to us and saying, well, why can't I have the deck that's supposed to last 100 years? And Jerry has explained very astutely that if it's done right, you can use original historic materials and it will last. This idea about free maintenance is BS. And you do have to paint hardy plank. And you do have to maintain it. Everything. So don't go down this slippery slope and make our job more difficult. And this is exactly what I explained to the applicant on that evening. This is a very important block, West Afton Avenue. Very pristine, except for one building. And we're trying to make it right. There's an obligation this property owner has, it's an obligation to this council to make it right. We have a historic district for a reason. Let's not set a precedent, please. Makes our job more difficult.
If we, being sympathetic to the cost, nobody wants that to happen. But the issue here is not the cost. The issue for us is that the next time somebody does work that wasn't permitted, and we're faced with this situation, if we allow this, then they're going to say, well, you allowed it then, why can't you allow it now? And that is the problem. It's unfortunately big. You're in the middle of it, but that's the problem we're faced with.
No, and I understand that. But it's already been allowed. Like
Right.
Continental already has the exact same type of decking that I have.
It's not just the decking, but it's that you did it without their approval.
And I totally understand.
Which I know you didn't want to, but
Yeah,
that's what
I did-
happened.
That wasn't the plan.
Okay, I think everything that has been said, can be said, has been said. So
Excuse me,
yes,
I have something to say.
yes.
When my son-in-law applied for the application, why didn't they give him a leaflet or something on it? He didn't get any information on what it should be or shouldn't be.
What application?
The,
When he did the Hardy on the restaurant building, you mean?
yeah. Like, he wasn't told, well, you know, here's the application, fill this out, but then here's a brochure that goes with it, and here's the restrictions. He wasn't given anything like that, he didn't know.
So the current process is if a permit comes to Borough Hall that's within the historic district, before it can be approved, it goes to HARB, and that's when you get feedback on the materials, because we are understanding that this is all happening before work commences.
wasn't, he was in the middle of it.
Right. Okay, I'm going to call the question. Let's do a roll call vote. I'm going to start down at this end. Mr. Carlson?
Yay.
Mr. Feiner?
Yay.
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 Ms. Siegel Morris?
Yay.
Ms. Scher?
Nay.
Mr. Applebaum?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Stump?
Yes.
Motion carries to uphold the denial 6-1. Thank you both for your time.
So where do we go from here?
Moving on to certificate of appropriateness for 24-0431 North Main Street handrail. Anyone want to make the motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilperson Siegel Morris, seconded by Councilperson Applebaum. Discussion from council. Mr. Applebaum, I'd love to hear from you since you pulled this one out.
I pulled this out after a discussion with Mr. Taylor. I'm not sure that this will take up as much time as the last discussion. If I understood correctly, you just wanted to make some points about the process and why you chose to make the recommendations that you did. Is that fair?
Can you please come forward to the microphone, Mr. Taylor? So before us, we have an application for a handrail. It was unanimously approved by HARB. Please proceed.
First of all, the application was submitted to HARB before it was denied. The applicant came back to HARB and was approved. So my concern is that the certificate of appropriateness talks about extension of existing safety handrail, and then it talks about safety handrail again, and it talks about two-rail design, and then the recommendation is for why am I not seeing it? It's for a ADA accessible handrail. So the applicant presented that they were giving us a handrail for handicap accessibility, and the HARB certificate of appropriateness says that this is a handicap accessible handrail. I've done quite a bit of handicap accessibility requirements. I made a copy of the ADA standards here, if anybody would like to look at it. And what was presented was not a handrail, but a guardrail. Guardrails are the ones that have the vertical post, and the purpose of a guardrail is to stop someone from going underneath or around the guardrail and falling off a porch or a stair. So typically you have guardrails going up and down stairs where you have an open well, like 8 foot deep, things like that, and you don't want people falling through. That's a guardrail, and that's what was submitted. A handrail is, for ADA accessibility, is a continuous handrail that is smooth and goes down without any disruptions. Extending 1 foot on the top and 1 foot horizontal on the bottom. I think the applicant sort of addressed that a little bit. The problem with a guardrail is that you have balustrades coming up at 2 or 3 points. If you're a handicapped person and the reason for this continuous handrail is so that you have stability. If you're sliding on your handrail and you have to let go of the handrail because of the balustrade and then grab the next part of the handrail and keep on going down, when you let go of that handrail, all of a sudden you're unstable. And that's when you might fall. That's why the ADA regulations require a continuous handrail. So it's a safety issue. And so I think that in accordance with the certificate of appropriateness, talking about a handrail and not a guardrail, that the application should probably go back to HARB and think about putting an actual handrail in that is continuous. And I would like to give you, I only made 4 copies.
We can just pass it along.
This is,
Do you want to say?
a handrail at
Chris?
the Episcopal Church. And if you notice, it is a continuous handrail. It may not be perfect for ADA because they normally like a little bit larger diameter, but this is continuous and it's a much safer issue. If someone did fall,
Did everyone
the
get
idea
it?
that this is a,
Back down and talk into the microphone, please. Thank you.
if someone did fall, the borough and the property owner could be liable because they represented that it's a ADA handrail when I contend it's not. Yeah, go ahead.
So we have unanimous approval of it as submitted with the understanding by HARB that it was ADA, and now it's been installed, and it's not?
It hasn't been installed yet. You haven't.
No,
approved
you
it
just,
yet.
you-
They just approved it 2 weeks ago.
right.
Oh.
So you found out that they're not installing an ADA1, how?
I wasn't at the second HARB meeting. I argued it at the first HARB meeting. It was denied. At the second HARB meeting, I was with my wife for her birthday. Sorry, but wasn't at the HARB meeting. I checked the entire Burlington County Community College campus for ADA compliance, and it's probably the same size as the Bucks County Community College. So I've done a lot of work in ADA. So,
I understand. I was just trying to get a feel for why we're having a kind of a flip-flop in opinion here.
Right, yeah.
Okay, got it. Questions from council for Mr. Taylor before we have the applicant come forward?
Well, my question, obviously, it's confusing because it was approved. And
Right.
HARB, whether you were there or not, doesn't
It's
mean,
approved.
you don't have override authority to whatever the
Right,
board,
no.
they made the decision.
Right.
And I assume the photos that we've seen here of showing the sketch and the photos of the short piece, they said all the way through there, continuing the existing railing system that they had there, continuing that up the hill a few more steps. So I think, I can't imagine how the HARB members didn't know that it was going to be the baluster type, or whatever you call it, and not necessarily a continuous handrail. But the bottom line, it was approved, and so I don't understand why we would go backwards at this point.
You can if you come forward, so that everyone can hear your comment who's watching.
So, Tim Foster. So I was at the HARB meeting, and Jerry was absent at that meeting. Subsequently, Jerry has explained, at least to 2 members of HARB here, that he was more knowledgeable on the issue of the ADA situation, more knowledgeable than the rest of the board was. So he's updating this so it's more appropriate. That's my interpretation for the ADA application. So he's brought more knowledge to this than, because of his absence, we might have made an error. I think that by revisiting it's probably the safest and most sensible thing to do. So,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have Joy, Gail, and Rita here this evening, though, so let's see what the applicant has to say, and we'll go from there. Welcome, thank you for coming. Sure.
I was at the first meeting where it was denied. I presented. It was never presented at that point as an ADA anything. This was a handrail to add to the one that was approved by HARB last year. We installed it last fall, I believe, last year. So we're continuing it across the landing to include the last riser up towards Afton Avenue. It is a railing. It is a commercial railing. It is made to be held on to height-wise and all that sort of thing. It is not ADA. Like I said, it was never approved, or was never presented as an ADA rail. That being said, the last meeting, when it was approved by HARB, I was not at that meeting, so we're flip-flopping here.
I was.
Marna was, and I know ADA was discussed, but I was not there. If
The application said this will meet ADA requirements.
that was at the last meeting. The original packet I turned in did not say anything about that at all. So that being said, this railing system is designed to accept ADA rails. This is an everyday railing used commercially and residentially, sidewalks, decks, into masonry, into wood structure, anything. So this, if it's that simple as adding their ADA approved system to this railing system, we would have no problem with that. So it'd be exactly what we presented, and the ADA compliant rail would be added to it.
Continuous?
It would be ADA compliant. They make that system for this company, for this railing.
Beautiful. Does that sound good?
I'm a little confused about something. Can I just ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
These are stairs. How are stairs ADA? I'm sorry for the naivete. How is it ADA compliant if it's stairs?
ADA is not limited to just
doesn't have to be a
wheelchair
ramp.
users.
I
So
see.
my
Okay,
mother
sorry.
walks with a cane. She
Keep
needs
people
it.
from falling and keep people safe.
So you don't need a ramp. You can go on stairs. That's also part
don't
of it.
have
Jump back to that.
I'm learning a lot. There's a lot of knowledge here tonight.
The first meeting when it was denied, it was denied, and I quote, "We cannot approve this because it'll block the view of the library," which is why I did, I don't know if they're here or
Renderings
not.
are nice, yeah.
With the, that's an actual sample railing in those photos, put in the exact place it would be, and from any angle, public or private, sitting on the patio, which is below it, from Main Street, from across the street, it doesn't even, the top of that rail doesn't even begin to approach the siding of the library for view. So it was, we were told exactly, we cannot approve it because it will block the view of the library. So those pictures were to show it doesn't do that. Now I feel like we're dealing with a little bit of a moving goalpost of the ADA thing. But like I said, that can be easily handled. Like I said, we can put an ADA rail made for that railing system onto it.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
I haven't seen that before.
Okay, well,
What is this?
Oh, this is a railing. Can I just, so everybody here. This is a railing at the Episcopal Church, and it's a continuous rail. It doesn't have any vertical post obstructions, and it's very simple, and you could put that in probably for the same amount of money, and it would
this is gonna
really
get
not
back-
be visible to the.
Okay, hold on. All right, I'm
everything
going to
else.
answer what you're
Okay.
saying. This goes back to the approved once and then not approved before. So we're trying to extend a railing that was approved 100% by HARB with no question last year. So we were attaching.
Which exists.
We're attaching to a railing that was approved and already installed, approved by HARB and installed, that we installed. This is touching that. We're trying to continue that same exact material. So the
Yeah,
material,
Would you like to make it less?
Mr.
this-
Taylor, Mr.
Oh, I'm
Taylor.
asking, can I ask?
you can ask me.
Okay, all right. My question to the applicant is, would they like to have something that is visually unobstructive wherever you stand, because the railing at the Episcopal Church is very unobstructive, you hardly see it at all, and it would not affect the overall environment of the area while providing something handicapped. So I really sort of asking FOLA to really reconsider this and have something that's unobstructive and very acceptable for the historic building. There's none of those vertical guardrails around the
Mr.
entire
Taylor?
library.
I'm just going to reel us back in. So we just went on record with the last applicant and said that council rarely overrules HARB. It's happened once in Mr. Finer's 10 years. We have an approval on the table. The applicant is willing to change what they submitted so that it's continuous and there's no breaks. The portion that's already there was approved by HARB last year. They're going to continue it so that there's not, a break there, so that it's easy to use for somebody who's sliding their hand around. That sounds good to me. I think the renderings look like it's hard to see it. I'm uncomfortable overriding a unanimous decision. That's how I feel. Anyone else want to say anything?
I fully agree. We have to be consistent,
Yep.
Concur.
Any other comments?
It doesn't preclude you from working it out separately, but as far as what we have on the table, we don't want to overrule it, even though you're asking us to.
don't know that it needs to be worked out if it was already approved, though. That's kind of the point.
So we have a motion on the table. We had some concessions from the applicant. Thank you, to make it continuous. I'll call the question. We already have a motion on the table. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention here.
Abstention for conflict of interest. I'm just passing a form which, yes, Ms. Scherer will fill out since she sits on FOLA. Motion passes 601. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, not through the consent agenda yet.
Wow.
All right, we said at the last meeting that we would not be voting on the Lennar holdback monies until the last meeting in April, or was it today we said we would vote on it? It was today. Yes, so here we are. Lost track of time. Mr. Carlson, would you like to speak on this since you asked to pull it from the consent agenda?
I wanted to remove it from the agenda primarily because I will be abstaining because I live in the area, I'm the treasurer. So that's why I wanted it separate.
Got it, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve items E and F as submitted?
Second.
You're good. Motion was made by Councilperson Siegel Morris, seconded by Councilperson Finer. Any discussion from council? Hearing none, or from the public, hearing none. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
Here,
One for you as well.
I got it filled out.
Motion, oh, you got one. Motion passes 7-0. Should we vote on those separately or is together okay, since they were together in the consent agenda? Okay, perfect. Police chief's report at 8:53 PM.
I have service statistics for March 2024. In March 2024, the police department recorded 570 calls for service. We issued 6 parking tickets. We issued 81 moving traffic citations. There's a mistake here on DUIs. It was only one DUI and 4 arrests for the month. And that completes my report. I think my new business item is later, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We can do it now, though, if you'd like.
If you
I mean,
want
it's-
to. Sure, we'll take care of it.
The budgeted expense, it's right now.
Correct. Okay.
Actually, yeah.
All right, the second item is then a budgeted expense, which is the replacement of a police vehicle. The history is that the Yardley Borough Police Department currently owns and utilizes code enforcement and police vehicles, 4 of which are fully marked and equipped. These vehicles range in age from 3 to 14 years. The oldest of these vehicles is a 2010 Chevrolet Impala, code car number 7905. At current staffing, these vehicles are now used by officers much of the time in response to more calls for service than in prior years. Law enforcement agencies across the country have developed life cycles for patrol vehicles that aim to provide safety to the officers, efficiency to the agencies, and cost reduction for the parent governmental bodies. In 2002, a polling of 15 law enforcement agencies showed a mean average of 70,800 miles for rotation and/or replacement. Due to our geographical layout and our maintenance schedule, we set our replacement threshold at between 90 and 100,000 miles. We have also established a vehicle rotation of 1 vehicle replaced every 2 years and a maximum police patrol lifespan of 8 years. The target mileage in years of use reflects the higher probability of mechanical breakdowns due not only to major components such as engines and drivetrains, but also other ancillary parts such as suspension components, brake lines, springs, charging system, etc., which wear more rapidly in police vehicles than their civilian counterparts. With one such vehicle meeting the replacement criteria, we are seeing a rise in repair bills, and although not tracked, presumably efficiency and lost time for these repairs. There is also a question of fleet liability. In the event of an accident, liability may be where poor or aged equipment are called into question. This may be more problematic where the involved equipment goes beyond the industry best practice and standards. Utilizing the Pennsylvania CoStars program, the police department received 5 complete bids and has identified Fred Beans of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, as the vendor with the most competitive price for a 2023 Ford Explorer. The Ford Explorer SUV was quoted as $50,645 for the vehicle and $13,496.24 for the upquit. I'm sorry, ma'am, these are the old numbers before we got them fixed. Let me get those new numbers for you, if you hold on one second. I brought up the old document. Just give me a second here.
Power go out?
While the chief is looking that information up, may I ask Mark and Dave, the person who's calling in is asking after they dial in which option they should push? Mark gave me a phone number. That's the number you gave me, I guess.
So when he comes in on Zoom, we will communicate with him from back here and we'll bring him in and bring him over.
He says he's getting options and he didn't know
I
which
think
one.
he's dialing on the phone.
He has to go on to Zoom.
You go into Zoom and put that in as the
Oh.
meeting ID.
I see.
It's a meeting ID.
Oh, yes, I imagine that's what you want him to do.
On video.
No, he doesn't need, he just sounds fine, audio's fine.
All right, we'll get you a number for that.
Okay,
Number for our meeting ID to call in with that. We'll get you a number.
thank you.
You ready, Chief Kelly?
I am, ma'am.
Excellent.
The total for the vehicle upfitted with police equipment is $56,368.24. The cost of the vehicle was around $50,000 on its own. The vehicle will be provided utilizing a lease purchase financing to be determined with one payment per year for 4 years, with the first payment due 1 year following delivery of the vehicle to the borough. Following the last payment, ownership of the vehicle transfers to the borough. It is expected that the replacement of the oldest unit savings will continue to be achieved in the area of major breakdowns and major repairs. I respectfully ask that council consider a motion to authorize the purchase of this Ford Explorer from Fred Beans in Doylestown. Financing will be considered when it is identified at a later date.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion is made by Councilperson Finer, seconded by Councilperson Siegel Morris. Discussion from council?
Just a quick question. Are we talking about the gas-powered or the hybrid model?
This is a gas-powered vehicle.
Gas-powered, thank you.
I want to acknowledge or just commend the chief for always finding, and your department, the people who help you do this, just finding good deals. And also, when I asked the chief about hybrid versus gas, I got this great analysis from you. Basically, the idea was, well, if we spend more now, well, maybe we could save it in gas, but it turns out that's not the case in this particular case. Maybe in the future, but I just appreciate that you're doing that level of analysis. So we're making good
I
long-term.
appreciate that, sir, and much of this credit goes to PFC Dakota Romberger, who did a lot of research and a lot of contact with vendors.
Excellent. We'll take it.
Norm.
Yeah. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Did we lose Jared?
He's there.
Oh, there
We
you go.
have two Jareds building in, I think.
Jared with one arm. Motion carries unanimously 7-0.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes my report.
Thank you. You have before you a finance report dated April 2nd, 2024. Any issues with the finance report? Otherwise, it will be accepted by consensus. Managers report, please.
I am giving my March review. Our annual audit has been complete. It has been uploaded to DCED and also was placed on our website. We only received one proposal for the professional services to assist with the updating of the comprehensive plan from urban development with an estimated cost of $30,000. So this will go back to the drawing table. I did reach out to the Bucks County Planning Commission, and they would like to have a conversation, maybe a Zoom call on what we really want with this. They have an issue with our budget as well, since our budget is a little on the lower side. So stay tuned for this. This is a work in progress. As I have stated previously, right to knows have increased. There was one appeal in Harrisburg, which was handled by Rudolph Clark, who's our right to know solicitor. That OOR ruled in favor of the borough, so the borough won this appeal. We received an invoice from our right to know solicitor in the amount of $5,092.50. This was just for the month of February. The entire expense this month was due to 2 requests by residents. Both residents are well known to the borough from multiple right-to-know requests. Due to our very tight budget, these expenditures challenge us to complete projects which we have an urgent need to complete, such as the comprehensive plan, the roof. There's many projects that we need. In 2024, we budgeted $15,000 for right-to-knows. So in just 1 month, we spent over $5,000. Zoning applications. We had 6 applications, 1 for a new business. We had 1 zoning hearing board in March for impervious surface, which the variance was granted by the zoning hearing board. That project will move on to a stormwater review revision. Building permits was slow for March, only 4. 3 UNOs, 3 trash certifications. We're still waiting on real estate transfer tax for March. And the big news, as you may have heard, the borough was successful in receiving full funding for Phase 3 of the North Main Street Sidewalk Project. And big thank you to everybody who helped get us that, including a big thank you to Senator Sanacero, State Rep Perry Warren for their efforts in assisting with this award. And that is my report.
Thank you.
Question, if I may?
Yes.
Borough Manager Johnson, well, you said that it was 5,000 just for February,
Correct.
and the month before, I don't remember, or is that the cumulative?
Yeah, there was not.
It was just the in-house staff, and I think it was like around $150 or something.
Right, but keep in mind, it's not just 5,000 that went to Rudolph Clark. The amount of admin time
Right,
it
no,
takes for a lot of these right-to-knows, and we continue to get them on a regular basis.
So that $5,000 amount does not include the admin or the value of
sir.
administration? Okay.
No, it does not.
So I would be remiss, and I'm broken record here, but I'm going to keep saying it. If you're going to have a right-to-know request, I am requesting that you carefully look at all your options for getting information without costing the borough and the taxpayers of Yardley Borough more money. At $5,000 is 1/3 of the amount that you allocated, $15,000. So in February, we're at 5,000. How many more months before you've surpassed that amount? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But what I do foresee is that if it keeps going at that rate, we may be well beyond that amount. And I'd hate to be in a position of asking, and I'm not, I don't get to make this decision, or I'm not assuming this, but, I would hate for us to be in a position where it digs into our budget where we may have to do something drastic to make up for it. So please, if you're going to make a request, a right-to-know request, do so with thoughtfulness. Thank you.
Great. Engineers report, please.
Thank you. We've issued our engineer's report to council. Are there any questions? Okay, that concludes my report.
Report, Pat.
Mayor's report.
So just real quickly, thank you. We are within 30 days of carry the load this year, so please I'll start sharing a bunch of information on Facebook probably the beginning of next week. So again, love to have a great Borough Council presence at that if you can make it. So just watch the Facebook pages, and if you see things, please, if you can, share them out, and let's get a good turnout for this. Thank you.
I have a question. How far is the walk?
So there's a bunch of different walks. The main walk is from West Point, New York to Dallas, Texas. So
Shall we put you down for that?
I'm not sure where,
What's the shortest
Where do you
walk?
fit in there?
the walk we're promoting this year is from Washington Crossing to Yardley Borough. It's about 4 miles, flat scenic walk along River Road.
Okay. It's not like a run, though.
It's not a run, no, it's a true walk.
Like, I'll be like left in the dust.
But it's very, like, accessible if you want to join at any point along there. You can
point, yep.
park at Fold and walk just that last
Yeah, you
point
could
in.
park at
That
the
would be
boat landing and
wonderful.
just walk
It's
in.
all, we have
Yeah,
police
thank you.
escort, so it's very safe to do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Excellent point, thank
we
you.
would welcome you.
Anyway.
Okay, council member reports. Councilperson Siegel Morris.
No report this evening.
Thank you. Councilperson Finer.
Well, I'll try to keep it short, but I've got a lot of good stuff, so it's hard. Lennar-Yardley Bridge, we are walking over it. I don't know if it's officially open, but it's being used. And I just want to give a big thanks to everyone here on council, to Paula, to Pat, and to the homeowner whose property the other side of the bridge goes to. We really had to pull together because the Pico lot challenge of not having acquired that lot when we expected to, which I know it's getting closer, but it's still moving, but it's, we're not there yet. To have to work around that was complex, but we pulled it off, and I think it looks great, and people are happy with it. And I've seen the John Celentano out there with his shovel helping to fix ruts, which is much appreciated, but it's nice to see the community enjoy that and to see the fruits of our labor. And part 2 will come when we acquire the Pico lot and figure out how to make use of the Yardley trailhead and to do the final grading. I'm also, Paula, you kind of stole my thunder there. No, it's good. It's good. You deserve it. Just to get the $1 million multimodal transportation fund grant for the final phase of the sidewalk, plus the $500,000 or so that we have, we're actually funded now to complete the sidewalk, which I mentioned, I believe it was about 20 years ago that residents first came to the council to request a sidewalk. So this is a big project, and sometimes things take longer than we expect, but it's nice to actually work towards completion. And that sidewalk will include the crosswalk at Dolington McKinley, that was in the drawings. And we have a little stretch there in Dolington. We'll try to figure out how to complete that. And then we can focus our attention on Afton. David, I don't know if street signs, who that falls under, but I'm going to let you talk about that if you want to.
Thank you.
That one issue. I'll pass that one to you, but I have one more issue, which is a totally separate issue that you may have noticed some areas around the country have these vape smoke shops that crop up, and like one will open up and then more open up. It's kind of like they multiply. And, I'm all for free market. I don't want to tell people what to do and what not to do. It's not about that. But people around town are concerned that this could come here. And the problem is that we are a very family-friendly community in Yardley Borough. Even our tattoo shop is family-owned, and our new borough piercing shop. And I say even because there's a stigma with those types of businesses, but they're family-friendly. And the business model of the vape type shop is predatory towards young people in nature. So there's concern about that. And, 5 years ago, we had some work was done, although it was never completed, to look into limiting the possibility of dispensaries in town. And so kind of looking at the concerns of proliferation of different types of shops and the community not wanting that kind of thing proliferating here, I started to work with the solicitors to figure out what we can do to address that and the community's concerns. So I'll have more when I have something substantial for you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Finer.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilperson Carlson.
Yes. General government, we've successfully gotten through the audit. We haven't had the official sit-down meeting with the auditor yet, but the report you all saw in there, so thank you to Paula and Patty for making it be a relatively easy year on the auditing side. And then just one other follow-up. You remember we handed off, I went to Planning Commission last month and shared with them what we shared about short-term rentals and our feelings about short-term rentals, and gave them a lot of information on other boroughs or townships, municipalities, and what their ordinance are. So they're taking the ball to run with that. And so that was good, and we got that off and running. That's all I had for tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Could I ask, what is the planning commission doing about the short-term rentals?
Well,
They're
it's a
just,
planning commission's responsibility to go look into an ordinance. You know, I started to him saying, we want, when we sat here in November, we
Right,
said,
right. I know you said
we
you
want
were
some
still-
sort of an
right.
ordinance to control it.
Okay.
Currently, you can only do it in the commercial, you can only have a short-term rental in the commercial area. You can't have it in the residential.
right.
And we don't have many rules around it as much as they should. So that's what they're going to work on.
Okay, I have an odd question. For something like, what do they call those, the rentals?
Airbnbs.
Airbnbs. Would that be something that the borough, planning commission and the council people decide, or is that something that the residents might vote on?
It's not something that we can vote on, to my knowledge.
Okay, that wouldn't be a question that you could put on the
A ballot referendum.
No? Okay, I'm just curious. I look at it from, I don't know that a lot of people want one next to their house, so.
Well, there'll be a whole process if there's a proposed ordinance, and there'll be public hearings on it, et cetera, and
Yeah,
people will be
okay,
able to voice
okay.
where they stand on it.
Okay,
It's
public
definitely a
hearings is
good point, though, that as council people, we're supposed to represent our constituents, right? So if you feel
Right.
like you don't have a good pulse on what your neighbors want, you should ask them about it before you vote on it.
Exactly.
I will, thank you.
Yep. Councilperson Applebaum.
Well, I wanted to, I wasn't sure what you're referring to as far as signs.
Oh, I was referring to Buttonwood and that, I wasn't sure.
Oh, I can mention it, of course.
We're prepared to talk about it. We can talk about it another time.
Just very quickly, I'll dovetail it into what I was going to speak about. So this weekend, I attended 2 ribbon cuttings along with other council people. One was at the new Barrow Piercing shop, and the second Wildflower Valley. I just wanted to mention to concur with Mr. Feiner that a place like a piercing store, it's refreshing to both know that they're very responsible and they are running their business with families in mind, meaning that I was told explicitly that they only work from the belly up and that most of their clientele are under the age of 18. At least that's the impression I got from what the owner, Nicole Heiner, told me. So the other point I wanted to make also about that is that I'm very excited, and it pleases the Community Economic Development Committee that these are 2 new businesses that are woman-owned. This goes in hand with some of the data collection that I'm working on to show what a high percentage of women-owned businesses and organizations or co-owned businesses are in Yardley Borough. It's an important, information. I think that it says a lot about us as a town and the kind of people that we attract as we create this destination. As far as the question on signage, Wildflower Valley is currently located at, I believe it's 1 South Main Street, yet they're actually physically on Buttonwood Drive. There's been discussion, and I will bring it up later, at a later date, but I spoke to the Representative Perry Warren's office, and they said that it's a relatively easy process to have the address changed. to reflect both the, the physical location, but a possible name change for the street. I got a letter in, to encourage us from the property owner, the landlord, for this, as well as others that I surveyed. But again, I'm just giving the initial information. Mr. Finer, if you have a comment.
Just to clarify, when you say name change for the street, we're saying the same name for the street, but the idea of switching drive to walk, because it's actually a walk. Right?
Yeah, but that's a name change. But yes, I agree with you. Thank you.
Not really changing the name, just changing what it is.
I did recommend David Applebaum Drive, but no one seemed to support me on that. Anyway, that being said, I hope, can we get Jared on? He's on mute. Okay, if he hears us and he wants to join in now, he can. Otherwise, I'll speak on behalf of that project. The project is the,
Jared.
Jared with two R's.
Yeah, I think,
That's the 1R, Jared.
Yeah, sorry, 1R Jared. This is 2R Jared. As you may be aware, there's a project in the works, a watershed cleanup project by the War Memorial at Afton and River Road. The rain and the forecast that we were looking at last week indicated that, no pun intended, I guess, that the volunteer work for the cleanup would be washed out. So he has asked, and we have to move it to next week. I didn't get an indication that would be a problem. Is it just a consensus, or I'm not sure what steps to take at this point, President?
not sure, did the event permit include rain dates?
The submittal, the resubmittal did have rain dates to Mr. Foraker. I cannot speak on Mr. Foraker's.
I can't either, so if the dates that it's being moved to are the rain dates that were approved in the event permit, then we're fine. If they're not, then you'll need to discuss with Mr. Foraker.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot speak to that.
The rain dates are they are in the application.
So, perfect.
Good.
Okay, well, thank you. Could you just review what those dates are for us?
Yes, so the dates are Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the weekend is from 12 to 4, and the weekdays are from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock.
And that's beginning on what date?
Say that again?
It's beginning on what date?
So that will be until it starts on this Saturday, the 6th, and will be done on the 10th.
And a celebratory event on April 21st, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And those are the rain dates.
Except for the celebratory event, which is
We don't know yet if we need a rain date.
correct.
Got it. Sounds good.
Celebratory event is on a Sunday?
It's on the Saturday, the 20th.
Which is Earth Day. Yes. That's fine.
Yeah.
No, he said the 21st.
Oh, the 20th.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's the day before.
21st is a
Okay.
Sunday, that's why I asked, because I'm like, I just want
Earth, we call it Earth Day Eve.
Okay, I have,
For people to come out.
thank you, Jared, with two Rs. I really appreciate all the hard work that you've put into this. It's a significant and very much appreciated by our residents and myself, and looking forward to it. I have nothing else to report on.
Thank you. Thank you, Jared, with two Rs. Councilperson Scherer.
no report.
Councilperson Stump.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll make this quick because I can barely talk right now. So attended the ribbon cuttings on Saturday for the two new businesses, and also the Easter egg hunt, and worked with Parks and Rec on that. it's really cool seeing all the stuff that's happening here in town. Very excited about that. I'm sure there's other things that I'm forgetting. I had a list that's on my computer that's dead. But anyway, one thing I did want to share that was pretty cool that happened in one of our community Facebook groups, not an official borough page, but in one of our local community pages. There was a vehicle that was struck by another vehicle on Main Street, and the person posted in the group asking if anybody had any information. And what was really awesome was within 30 minutes, thanks to a resident of South Main Street, we found video footage, and Chief was able to utilize the license plate scanners at Main and Afton to find the vehicle, get their insurance information to the person who was hit within about 5 hours. And there were multiple parties that came together to make this happen. Some people tried to give me, I think, more credit than I deserve. Really, I just facilitated everything. But what I want to commend our residents on is how everyone comes together to work together to care for each other. And I think it's really cool, and it's what makes Yardley special. And that's all I have.
Thank you. That concludes the business items on our agenda because we already covered Spearhead, right? So we will now adjourn into executive session. There will be no vote afterwards. The topic of the executive session is legal personnel. Thank you. Good night.